When people say the NHS will die, literally they will say the NHS will die without reform. Are they saying that they're going to be the mass murder of doctors and patients?
So to be clear, when you...
This is probably Owen Jones's worst media performance ever. Here he is comparing the chants of Bob Vylan saying death to the IDF at Glastonbury to people saying the NHS will die without reform. A little bit different, don't you think?
Watch that rapper at Glastonbury chanting and leading a chant with thousands joining in of death to the IDF. You instinctively believe...
He said it himself. He said...
Oh, no, he said it since. So you accept, then, that the rapper was talking about soldiers?
No. People call for the death of the Russian army.
Wait for it.
Do you believe him 100%?
He's going to get
when
owned.
he said death to the IDF, he didn't mean individuals. Do you believe that?
Well, he's actually, unlike... I mean, this is the irony. Do you know what the irony is?
Well, just answer my question first.
Yes, I do.
Because new footage has emerged.
And death to every single IDF soldier out there as an agent of terror.
I've known you a long time. I have a lot of respect for you. You just have to admit, when you hear that, you were wrong to defend him in the way you defended him. He didn't mean IDF.
People I was defending...
He didn't mean IDF the entity, did it? But you accept now that you were wrong. He didn't mean that.
I didn't hear. I've only heard for the first time.
You've heard that. So what? Now you've heard that. Do you still say he only meant the entity?
Well, no. Obviously now he's made clear what he meant.
So you accept you were wrong.
Well, yeah, because I
know. I'm not saying you. I'm not saying you should have known.
Fine.
I'm just saying that I found the defence very disingenuous by everybody, and I felt what he'd done. And this has now been proven, I think. He'd gone on social media. He'd seen people coming up with this ludicrous defence that he only meant the entity. And then, and knowing what he'd said on stage, he issues a statement saying the complete opposite that he's read from people like you defending it. And now he's made all of you look like complete prunes.
No.
Wow. That was, I mean... a complete non-defense from Owen Jones, because he just completely scrambled and went, well, yes, this, that, could not just say, sorry, I was wrong. Now that new clip has emerged, I can clearly see this person, the singer in Bob Vylan, wishes death upon individual IDF soldiers, not just the IDF as an entity, as an army. I mean, it could not be clearer than it is that he wishes death upon individual soldiers after that new clip has emerged. Why can't Owen Jones just put his hands up and say, hey, I was wrong? But oh no, he has to sit there and he can't come up with any other possible explanation, and he has got such a big ego that he can't just admit that he was wrong. Just a bit of an update on the whole Bob Vylan drama. We have now, after a lot of calls for Tim Davie to resign, the CEO of the BBC, the Director General, we've heard that the board, quote, fully supports Tim Davie, so he will not be going, by the sounds of it, at least not for now. And they've also admitted that the rap duo Bob Vylan, made up of Bobby Vylan and Bobby Vylan, both fake names, was flagged as high risk before the Glastonbury performance, yet it was still allowed to go to head. They're going to be changing their policy, their editorial policy for music events as a consequence of this, to try and regain people's trust as a consequence of this whole fiasco. So the board has said it fully supports Director General Tim Davie, and Tim Davie himself, he was at the festival, but he didn't ask for the live stream to be taken down after Bob Vylan chanted death to the IDF. As I said, the BBC have admitted the band was flagged as high risk, but they allowed it to go ahead nevertheless. They also did not cut the stream after the comments. They decided not to make it available on demand to rewatch later, but they kept the stream going, and of course included the streaming of huge swathes of the audience chanting along as well. This is what the chairman of the BBC has said. The board fully supports the Director General and the swift actions. Swift? It's not exactly swift, didn't take the stream down right away, and his team to identify these errors and address them. And also Mr. Davie Tim Davie, he put out a message saying, "Dear all, I wanted to write to you today about Bob Vylan's appearance at Glastonbury. I deeply regret that such offensive and deplorable behaviour appeared on the BBC and want to say sorry to our audience and to all of you, but in particular to Jewish colleagues and the Jewish community. We are unequivocal that there can be no place for anti-Semitism at the BBC. I and everyone need to ensure that the BBC is a role model for inclusivity and tolerance, and we all have a part to play. We're utterly committed to creating an environment where everyone is supported and can do their very best work." And there is a photo from the concert. You can see a lot of Palestine flags. How many British flags do you see there? Okay, I think I maybe see one English flag, but that is about it. Just shows how little patriotism there is left in the country. So, in order to try and win over hearts and minds and show they've changed, they've come up with a new package of measures, editorial policy, where essentially, cut a long story short, they will say that if an act is flagged as high risk, they just won't play it. Okay, they've had to do this after Lisa Nandy demanded that she be able to speak to the BBC after this. Lisa Nandy being the culture secretary, and she was not happy. She said she wasn't happy with the BBC's response and demanded, quote, accountability at the highest levels. And she said the corporation's leadership failed to provide her with answers as to how the performance was broadcast unedited. She criticised the BBC for failing to carry out due diligence on the band after a new video emerged of Bobby Vylan saying death to every single IDF soldier out there as an agent of terror for Israel. And that was just last month. This isn't a video that has emerged from decades and decades ago, that it would have been really hard for them to find. This is a fairly new clip. You would have thought that, especially if this was an act that was flagged as high risk, they would have done a bit of their homework basically and found this video and made a decision, like they did with Kneecap, not to air the performance. Lisa Nandy, she even spoke about it in the House of Commons, saying, "I'm not satisfied with the response that I've had. I've gone back to BBC leadership to ask for further information, etc., etc." So hence we have now had this change of editorial policy, new regulations at the BBC to try and show that they are on top of things. Very, very chaotic week for the BBC, I think it is fair to say, or week or two. Since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, I think it's been a pretty difficult time for the BBC, eh? Anyway, I'm Chloe Dobbs. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to Reasoned if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any more updates.